Hello everybody and welcome to this week's ARW Weekly. I'm your host Craig. Joining me this week, I'm delighted to have Randall, Jonathan, Asif and Matt. And lads, it's the international break. There isn't a lot for us to talk about LFC wise, but we've picked out a few nuggets here that we think we can get through an hour with and keep it entertained. Lads, Jose Enrique retired this week. We thought we'd best acknowledge it and ask you guys for your favourite Jose Enrique moment from his time at LFC. Actually, you know what? I'll widen this. It doesn't even have to be from his time at LFC. From his entire career. I'll let you guys pick. Randall, I'm going to come to you first, my friend, all the way over in Philly. So hello to you. And what's your best Jose Enrique moment, please?
Oh, good evening, guys. And thanks for letting me join you on the ARW Weekly. My best moment, I guess, would have to be it was his dime from about 10 yards short of midfield. And it was a dime to Luis Suarez in the box against Newcastle. It was 4 years ago on, I believe it was November 4th, 2012. He just takes it off the shoulder, does a little dink around the goal, and boom, in. And the other one would probably be when he had to go in goal for 15 minutes when Reina got sent off. So those were two up and down memories. And it took a little bit hard to find the best memory, but that would be the one for me.
That Jose Enrique pass to Suarez you were talking about, I was actually at that game, and there was a couple of funny things about that game for me. And one was, I remember walking and I got seats in an area of Anfield called the Paddock, and I was absolutely delighted with these seats. It was a really good area. But I was walking over towards my seat and I said, I'd hate to be the poor fucker that's stuck behind that big pole there. And as I got closer and closer and closer, wasn't my seat the one directly behind this fucking pole? So I spent...
Obstructed view.
Severely restricted view.
Spent the whole game kind of half eking out onto the steps. So that goal you're talking about when Jose Enrique crossed it in and Luis Suarez had that beautiful touch around Tim Krul and knocked it in. Everybody rushed forward and I fell forward and fell down about 10 or 12 steps down onto the ground. So I'll never ever forget that goal.
Yeah, you remember that one.
Asif, I'll come to you next, buddy. It's not really someone that we've got a whole heap of things, but give us your best Enrique moment.
The first one that came to mind was that Suarez assist. I think you dig a little bit deeper. The goal against Swansea, I think he was at the end of a very slick, quick move, if I remember. Yeah, I mean, there really isn't much else, is there? I mean, other than the time when he was on X Factor imitating that Stevie guy, or vice versa.
He did very well on X Factor, to be fair.
Yeah, he made good friends with Simon, didn't he? But no, I mean, like, he's a strange one. I mean, he came to us, I think, as somebody I think we were talking about earlier, on the back of Paul Konchesky, so he couldn't have been much worse. He started off okay, but then, it seemed to just fade away, really, didn't he?
Yeah, I think we did speak about this before we came on. I commented about, I've never seen a guy with such upper body physique. Like, his arms were nearly tearing through his shirt when he was wearing it. Like, it was like the shirt was painted onto him at times. He was certainly a very well-built man.
Thing is, he turned into something like out of Mario Kart, where you've got Donkey Kong and Bowser. I don't know, guys, if you guys have ever played that, where it takes an age to get going, but when he got going, he was fine.
Yes, exactly.
But
that's funny you say that.
It didn't help him much, though, on the pitch, obviously, because the first 2 or 3 yards are the main bit. But yeah, he just got bigger and bigger and bigger.
He was great for keeping players off, though, to be fair. He had great shoulder strength.
I've never seen a guy to just enjoy busting a guy over the line as much as Enrique. That was his tactic. The ball would go over the line. He'd purposely wait, then bash a guy over the end line. He was a unique player, wasn't he? God love him.
Randall, you want to come back in?
Yeah, I just want to interject on the goal against Swansea. I just rewatched it, and the biggest thing I pulled from it was how excited the other 8 or 9 guys that were right there were to celebrate with him. They were just like couldn't run to him quick enough. So I think that probably shows how much of a team guy he was, and everybody loved him. And that kind of came through, from watching him over the years. But just thought that was interesting. Everybody was over there trying to celebrate with him really quick.
Yeah, well, he was always on Instagram, wasn't he? And I've got it on my notes here. I think he played a big part when players like Suso were coming through the youth academy, and I still think we should never have let him go. And you could see it on his Instagram. He was always messing about with them. He wasn't really playing at this point, but he did seem to have a role within the changing room, a bit like, say, Lucas, just played less.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, he was still like such a team player, regardless, on and off the pitch, and that's what you need to build a cohesive unit. So you need that on a team from youth all the way up to the professionals.
Matt, you touched on it there about Instagram and stuff, but one thing you can certainly say about him is he always had a smile on his face when he was around the club.
Oh, he did, yeah. He loved playing for Liverpool. You could see it.
And what was your highlight of his Liverpool career, or indeed his career?
Well, going back to Instagram, I think it was just all the videos he put. Like, he used to put these weird videos where he'd just have someone crawling underneath a ping pong table or something. And I think it just showed what he was, just the joker around the club. And as good as he was at the start, that is sort of what most fans remember him as. But he was always a happy character, and I think that's what we've got to remember him as.
I know we're speaking as if the chap has passed away here at times, and it's absolutely not. We're just highlighting his career, obviously, and we don't mean to be dismissive of him because, the guy is still well and healthy, and thank goodness for that. Jonathan, there's been a few doozies, and we haven't left you up much, buddy, but what have you got for us in the Jose Enrique moments?
Yeah, like just to touch on the guys, the one that springs to mind is that pass for Suarez, and more so what Suarez takes the control down on his chest and just wraps it around Krul. Always one of these players that had a massive smile on his face. Seemed, again, I'm repeating what the guys are saying, insanely popular. Loves social media. I remember when I think we tried to get rid of a 1 January window, and he just tweeted at the time, "That's it. I'm going off I'm going off all social media. I thought all you guys would like it, but I'm going off to try and prove myself." Sadly, he never did, because he had all the makings of an exceptional footballer. As you touched on earlier, Craig, he was an absolute tank. Probably the biggest set of shoulders ever to be seen at the club. But he just slipped away, and the fact that Flanagan, I think at the time, overtook him on the team kind of spoke kind of volumes.
Hard to say he loved the holiday as well, Jonathan.
He did, and interesting that you say that. One of my funniest memories of the guy was a time he was away. I think it was a mid-season break, and he was away in Dubai with his missus, and of course, Jose being Jose couldn't get himself off Instagram, so they were out in one of these Dubai hotels. It's where they have all the beautiful picturesque views of the harbour and whatnot. But he decides to take a selfie of the lovely view outside, but he doesn't realise that the flashback of his camera onto the glass window puts a nice little reflection of himself and his wife. He's balls naked, and he has to take down the photograph a couple of minutes later, and he gets absolutely slated all around. It was, for me, that sums the guy up. He meant well, but he just couldn't resist putting his foot in it.
What is it about our players? I mean, there's been a few iffy. Roberto Firmino has had a couple of moments as well on Instagram with dodgy camera work and things being seen that shouldn't be seen.
Yeah, I'd love to see more. I'd love to see more of Roberto Firmino's wife.
I think we've seen enough, folks. Do you not agree?
There's not much left we haven't seen. To be fair,
like he played tonsil tennis with her, and he flashed the full Monty. So to be fair, we're not too far, guys, are we?
Did anybody look at the highlights from his wedding? Actually, I mean, that Brazilian band that played at his wedding, I was dancing along here watching that video. I've got to say, it was excellent.
Yes, it was.
Lads, international break. Lots of our players have been away all around the world. Lots of air miles clocked up. I want to keep Ben Woodburn aside during this conversation for a second, because I'm going to get to him in a minute, but does the success that our players have had, I mean, Salah scored the winner for Egypt in his last game, and Firmino and Coutinho had a couple of good results with Brazil, but do these great results on international duty have any benefit to us as a club side? Does bring the players back in better form? Does them getting to go home and spend some time in their local areas lift their mood and stuff, or am I just clutching at straws here? And Asif, I'm going to come to you first on this, buddy.
I think you're clutching at straws a bit there, mate, to be honest. I mean, I think it helps in certain instances. When I say keep Woodburn out of it. I mean, it's a shame, really, because international football used to be the pinnacle. So it shouldn't really be a training ground or a stage for people to get ready for the Premier League. But like you say, it seems to be going that way. So, I mean, like, somebody could not have been, they couldn't have played for their club for about 3 or 4 weeks, and then international week comes along and they get a game. So in that sense, I guess it does in a way. But I mean, those that go down to South America, go to Africa, go to wherever they go to, that can't help the clubs when they come back. Surely it's just more air miles. But I just think it's a shame that that's what international football has. That's what it's become, really.
You touched on international football there being the pinnacle of football many moons ago, but I was looking earlier on, I seen an article of players that might possibly miss the next World Cup, and you could be looking at a World Cup without Aguero, Messi, possibly Ronaldo. There were some really big players on that list, Alaba from Bayern Munich, and surely you want to see these big players at these big events, and that would really harm international football as a whole, which is already taking a bit of a beating, as you said, over the last few years, because a lot of people now just see it as a distraction from club football.
Yeah, the success really of the Champions League and the major European leagues, and I think the influx of TV money into both those leagues has completely just distorted away international football. It's become just dead end rubber games. It's slipping so far away from domestic football. It's incredible. It is kind of sad in a way. Us Irish have to put up with the worst caveman football known to mankind. Like in the space of not even a fortnight, I went from watching Liverpool play amazing football at Anfield, whipping Arsenal, to watching that absolute muck the other night against Serbia, where we just forgot what a football was. The contrast is incredible, really.
Well, I know you've got a guest over from the States at the minute staying with you, and you've been kind and generous enough to bring him to a few sporting events when he's been over. So he's been at the All-Ireland hurling final. As you said, he was at the Arsenal game with you, and he was at the Ireland-Serbia game. And what a contrast he must have gone through watching football over the last few weeks, as you said.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, but we're used to watching that when we watch our direct of a side, the United States that lose to Costa Rica.
Yeah, how did you lose that game?
I was going to bring that up.
I know.
I looked at your group, for instance, your qualifying group. So you've got Honduras, Costa Rica, is it Panama?
Yes.
Mexico, yep. And they basically, it's easier for you to qualify than not qualify. Looking at the group, like you'd want to be League 2 standard, not to qualify. And then you look at some of the South American group as well. Like some of the qualifying groups just seem really unfair compared to the hard stuff that European countries have to go through to qualify. Of course, not England. England always got a piss easy group.
But I mean, the thing is it could be a World Cup without Argentina and Chile. They're in 5th and 6th right now in their CONMEBOL group down there. But I mean, to America, it's just ridiculous. I mean, this could be the worst squad ever. The only person that's even worth watching is Christian Pulisic, and it's a huge gap between the next person. So I mean, if you're setting up to play America, what do? Just put your biggest, baddest guy on, try to intimidate and just batter Christian Pulisic, and that's what happens.
Are there any good young players breaking through in America that you think might make the major European league soon? Obviously, Pulisic has done amazingly well at Dortmund and should be at Liverpool.
Yeah, that's. Of course. I mean, that's really it. I mean, I can't wait. That it's in my cart, literally on LFC.com. For a Pulisic jersey. I can't. That would just be send me through the roof. But I mean, that's really it. I mean, we've gotten, not to get too off on topic into American football, but it's just like Freddie Adu, those types of players.
What happened to him?
He was the great hope.
He's the next. Yeah, he's the great white hope.
It's your ladies, I think, that play the football, isn't it?
Yeah, it's Alex Morgan and Carly Lloyd wins about the women's.
I coached out in the States, 2002, Pennsylvania, actually.
Oh, really? Wow.
Yeah.
We'll have to talk after.
But the girls were quite phenomenal. That's all I'm going to say on that. I mean, they literally could hit the top corner for fun.
Speaking of ladies football, you guys remember the goal scored by Stephanie Roach from Ireland? Last season, I believe it was. She was up against, it was World Cup year. She was up against James Rodriguez for goal of the season. Yeah. She's actually one of my really good friend's sister. So when that goal was scored, and I seen her on television standing beside Messi and Ronaldo and stuff, it just absolutely blew my mind. It was crazy to see a girl from the town I grew up in.
It was one of the big Irish campaigns as well, wasn't it? Because it went to a public vote, so everyone was going crazy here. Oh, vote for Stephanie! Vote for Stephanie!
She is a celebrity now in Ireland from just that one goal from Peamount United. Like it was crazy. Matt, what's your take on international football, buddy? Is it getting in the way of club football, or is there any hope for it to be resurrected to its glory days?
Well, I'm just happy we come out of the break with no injuries for once, to be honest with you. That's all we seem to get from international breaks, injuries and being English, boring football. So I've massively gone off the international break. I'm fully against it, really. They always time it at the worst time as well, don't they?
It's a bit of an odd one, this one, isn't it? You're just getting into a Premier League season, 3 or 4 games in, the excitement is starting to build, and you get a few good results, and then all of a sudden, bang, players are off.
Like the last one was the week after the season finished, wasn't it? It just makes no sense whatsoever nowadays, the international breaks. And the standard of football is, until you get to that every other summer, awful.
Yeah, it's not great to watch, I'll be honest, and there's not even that many goals in it. Randall, you want to come back in on this, buddy?
Yeah, I just didn't. I mean, just to the flip side of all this, I think one positive for us is that Andrew Robertson to get on the score sheet, and I mean, because he had believe had his first child or had a child right before, and that's why I think he was out of the side against Arsenal. He could have potentially been in it, but that I mean, there's more negatives that could outweigh positives in all of it. With even in preseason type of Lallana gets hurt. Against Crystal Palace, I believe, or Atletico Madrid in that final. But it's just anything when they're not playing for Liverpool in a meaningful game. If they get injured, that's always what the manager's worst fear is. So it seems like we've come out of it in a positive. And I just thought that Robertson, just to build his confidence up, because he's going to keep getting looked at, and that could be a big, spot for us if we can improve that area. And, that could be very, very good going forward.
That was a great shout, to be fair. Actually, it was a really good shout. He's got a great goal for Scotland, and if he can bring that to the table for Liverpool going forward, we'll be very happy. And that 10 million that we paid Hull will look like an absolute bargain.
Oh yeah,
he does.
Yes,
I think
it was a great. Sorry to put in there. It was a great international window for a number of Liverpool players. Woodburn obviously has turned into the Prince of Wales, I think. Call him today or something like that.
Yeah, we might talk about him later, so you guys got to stay tuned for that.
Well, you know what? He's actually next up on the agenda here.
There we go.
Jonathan brought him up wisely, and lads, I don't know what else to say about this young man. I don't want to build him up too much. We don't want to call him the next Robbie Fowler or call him whatever the hell we want, but my God, is he some player?
He's a superstar.
He really
He's one of those kids who've been watching. Now everyone's going to come out and say it, but I remember watching him a couple of years ago, and I always have a nickname Woody on him for some reason. I just go all Toy Story. But I remember just watching him at the time, and it's just telling everyone, this guy is going to be a superstar. This guy is going to be a superstar. And I think I was in the States at the time when he scored against Leeds in the Cup, and I just went mental around the room. Woody scored, got a lot of strange looks, but the kid is exceptional.
His face when he scored that goal in front of the Cup was just like,
I was so jealous.
Oh, it was great. I mean, I still have it saved on my phone. I just love it. It's just that's what embodies like to score for Liverpool Football Club in front of the best fans in the world. And that's like, he embodies that. It was just great.
Asif, I'm sure you've seen the goal that he scored for Wales against Austria.
Most definitely.
That's what dreams are made of, buddy, as a youngster.
He's a phenomenal talent. I mean, what you worry as you do this is me. Flip side of it all is, you want him to keep progressing. You don't want him to get injured. Michael Owen, when he burst on the scene, obviously he was slightly different. He relied on his pace, but he whittled away, sort of thing. You just worry. You just want him to keep progressing. I mean, at Liverpool, he's got a very good manager. Hopefully, that will allow him to continue to do that. But it's probably a bit of a deeper debate here. Is when you get younger players come through. Younger players seem to come through with their talent and everything else, and certain coaches, not all coaches, they try to then coach out of them the thing that makes them unique and special. Hence, I've got this, I've had this debate with quite a few people, is, we're getting more and more robots in football. And the last thing you want with these youngsters is for them to turn into these, robots that just follow tactical instructions sort of thing. That's why some people will argue that football is not dying, but it's not quite what it was. You don't get your flair players anymore. I remember the days when you used to watch Match of the Day and you used to see these goals and you think, how the hell did he just do that? Not your usual 30-yard top corner sort of thing, which anyone can do, if they strike the ball properly. Thinking of the likes of, Bergkamp and the Zolas of the world. We talked about him last week, but even like the Letizier's, for example, Baggios, Del Piero's, blah, blah, blah. You just hope that he's just allowed to continue to develop and be Ben Woodburn and not try and, obviously he's with Klopp or whatever, if Klopp was to go or whoever, you just hope and pray that he just keeps developing into the player that he needs to be and, not turn into a robot.
I know where you're going with this, especially in regards to things being coached out of players, because I know my generation, I'm 35 and I played football at a really high level. And I remember growing up, it used to be, you were almost pigeonholed in, like you had to be big, you had to be strong, a left back had to be fast. There were certain things and characteristics that you had to have for each position, and the bigger, stronger guys, especially in underage football, were always picked, and the smaller, more talented, skillful guys, in the UK and Ireland anyway, were almost overlooked and overseen because they weren't powerful enough. And Ben Woodburn certainly isn't somebody who we see as a powerful player, but he certainly has great technique, as if.
I mean, look at Manchester United. You might, and Rashford. I mean, we shouldn't really be talking about him that much, but if you look at their manager, I mean, I think he should have developed more than what he should or where he is now. Because in his club, he's either playing left back under Paul Van Gaal or he's playing left winger or whatever. Focal point, striker, play him. That's what he is. Don't try to make him into something he's not. And that's what you worry with Ben. And I don't think Klopp will do it. But I think that's just a general sort of a debate with youngsters these days. Let them nourish. The reason they've got this far is because of who they are, not because of who you then want them to be afterwards.
That's a good shout. And Matt, that kind of leads me on to the next topic around this I wanted to talk about. Where do you stand on the whole if you're good enough, you're old enough debate, Matt?
If you're good enough, you are old enough, in my opinion. Not for 2 games a week all season. Obviously that there are boundaries to that, but I can see Trent Alexander-Arnold being the right back with the most appearances this season. I believe he's ready, and I believe even when Klein comes back, he's going to struggle to get into the team if Trent can really hit the ground running this season. I think Woodburn's only problem is competition for places, but I think we will see a lot of them, and rightly so.
Yeah, to piggyback that point, it's that I think the international break for somebody like Ben Woodburn is a positive as long as he stays healthy, because he isn't getting the most playing time currently as he could. So to play with the likes of Gareth Bale and his other countrymen does give him, a little bit more, development, I would say. And, to also to piggyback the point, I think we have the greatest manager there is right now in football. So I don't think he is going to overthink somebody like Ben Woodburn and start to make him, a outside mid instead of, just do something outside the box. I think he knows what Ben Woodburn is, and, he will do what he, is what he's best at. So, and as far as being too young, I think if you're good, you're going to show it, and he's already shown it.
And how nice is it when a youngster comes through like that? I mean, if you remember when Fowler broke through, when Owen broke through, it just feels that much more special.
It does. When you get feel special more attached to him, don't you?
And that's what draws you to football. And it goes back to what we were just talking about, these robots. And it's so hard to relate to footballers these days. But when you see a young kid like that, like you just talked about his reaction to that goal, you can actually relate to it. You see it and you feel the passion. And that's why we love the game. Otherwise it's just like, some fancy celebration, do something silly. And just pick up your pay slip at the end of the day and drive your flashy car sort of thing. Seeing kids come through like that is only good. It's great for us fans.
It's that naive, childish enthusiasm and that smile on their face, and that they're playing the game at that age and at that stage of their career for the right reasons.
Because it's all something we dreamed about. Oh, personally, I did. I'm sure I was speaking for most of you guys. That's all what we dreamed about, and we can our dreams are epitomized by, say, Woodburn, that goal against Leeds. We can relate to that, and I don't think anything excites a football fan more than seeing one of their own come through the academy and make that breakthrough. It just. You think back of some of the most popular players we had, Fowler, Gerrard, Carragher, all players that come through the academies and have that emotional attachment to the club. It just means a hell of a lot more to both fans and players.
He's the embodiment of you on the pitch, isn't he, as a supporter?
Yes,
Yeah.
we can relate to them. Like going into a derby or something like that, it's not as if you have to explain to them how important this game is. They just bloody know because they've lived there. Now, that being said, it's the age-old debate. There has to be enough quality there as well. Just because you're local doesn't mean you can stay. I look at the likes of Flanagan to a lesser extent, but definitely Conor Randall comes to mind. If he wasn't Scouse, there's no way he's at the club. So you have to draw the line there, but a good quality local guy is what we all love.
I never understood how Conor Randall ever got a first team appearance. I don't like to belittle players and I don't like to run players down, but I just never seen it. I just never seen, obviously, what managers seen in him, and people a lot more knowledgeable than me in football gave him a chance, so he obviously had something about him. Asif, just to touch on Woodburn again, how would you like to see his career handled from this point? I know you're a very knowledgeable man about football and you're a coach and stuff, so how would you like to see him handled over the next 2 or 3 years? Now, just before you answer, I want to just touch on somebody who we don't like, who all of us despise to a degree, but that's Alex Ferguson. And Alex Ferguson was a master at keeping his players, younger players, out of the headlines, and if in the headlines there for the right reasons.
I think it's just what we just touched on is looking after him first and foremost, not burning him out. I think, like I said, we have got one of the best managers in the world who's already trying to downplay him and then some. Even after his goal against Leeds, he was already playing him down. I think that's crucial. I think you got to keep the likes of AD Ward and other dodgy agents away from him as well. I think Klopp needs to be standing there with a machete or something, keeping these arseholes away from him. Something like that. Yeah, I mean, you just want him to stay grounded as much as possible. And I guess the fact that he is local kind of means he might be a lot more than Raheem Sterling was, for example. I just want to see him grounded, but at the same time, build up his minutes, build up his confidence. He can't just be getting his confidence from playing for Wales. It's got to come. He's got to play with the likes of Coutinho, Firmino, Mane, Salah. Not every week, but obviously here and there, and not for 5 or 10 minutes. Just gradually build him up, and then hopefully, I'd say in 2 years' time, hopefully he comes through. Because, like I said, all the greats start young. Think back to. I'm not saying he's going to be anywhere near the levels of Raul or Messi or people like that, but they all start young. If you're good enough, you're old enough. It's that simple.
Jonathan, we know Ben Woodburn's Wales career is going to take a bit of a hit when Dublin rock up to Cardiff and take away the World Cup hopes when the Irish boys roll into town, and it's game over. So he's gonna have a knockback there. So he's gonna have to deal with that, and that'll shape him going forward.
I think Stephen Ward is going to put him in his back pocket, the footballing closet.
Stephen and not AD.
Yeah, no, you touched on a very good point there, actually, in terms of agents and stuff like that, because that's a broader issue then as well. We probably ramble on another pod about it, but young footballers now coming through have so much exposure to money, limelight, girls, boys, whatever they want, flash cars. You do need to be very level-headed, and there's so many people there looking to make an opportunity of them. As you said, so many dodgy agents. They're just looking out for themselves. Like you look at Coutinho. He was insanely, terribly advised. I think if he has a proper agent, all that hoo-ha doesn't happen. I think his agent is in his ear the whole time, and like. Let's be honest, agents, I suppose we'd probably do it ourselves. It's a business to them, but they're just looking for that big money move just to get it's an income for them. That's their bread and butter. It's completely against a lot of the time it's against the player's best wishes. I would argue that Coutinho is better off staying at Liverpool for a number of reasons. But yet he's his agent in his ear, and his agent has gone around probably to all his family as well, selling them the idea of the life in Barcelona, and then he carries out these ideas, and it's not necessarily for the good of the player. So that's certainly one thing that needs to be watched.
Absolutely.
Did anyone see about Jerome Sinclair, who's, funny enough, got AD Ward as his agent? He was meant to move to Sheffield United on loan on deadline day. It was all agreed. He was in Sheffield at the train station, basically waiting for the go-ahead. But meanwhile, AD Ward was negotiating his little extra things that he wanted to change, basically, to put money in his pocket, and it ended out Jerome Sinclair was just sat at Sheffield train station and didn't get his move.
That sums it up.
Yeah,
Randall,
that does sums it up.
What's your take on this situation?
I was just gonna say that. I mean, we just have to be wary about the agents. Obviously, you guys all touched on that, but it's also when Ben Woodburn does face adversity, if it's on the pitch, if it's off the pitch, if it's an injury, God, it doesn't happen. But it's just be around him, just support him. That's the biggest thing. I mean, I coach soccer over here, 14 to 18-year-olds, and it's
rewind
just
that.
Sorry, what sport is that?
What do you coach?
Oh, it's
Sports.
Exactly. I coach football. Sorry, you have.
There we go. That's what I thought. That's what I thought I heard. Yeah. Football. Definitely football.
You know how it gets over here with American football, but anyway, yes, I coach 14 to 18-year-olds in American in football, but it's just their temperaments are if they get challenged, that's when they really will give in. You know what I mean? And I know Ben Woodburn's obviously different, but it's just when he faces adversity, you have to be around him to support him. And then, also that sometimes that's the best thing for them to face adversity at a young age because they can push through and they're even better for it, through the long haul. So, that was my take on it. It's just the adversity thing. That's the biggest thing with the guys that you touched on with Michael Owen, with all the different ones that have come through. They start to hit a plateau and they can't, continue that uptick. So,
well, I think. Sorry, Asif. Go ahead. No, go ahead, Asif.
No, I was just going to put it in another way. It's just you just hope he doesn't. One that he creates his own identity as a footballer. I think is the key for him to go forward. Not just to try and be anybody else, but be him. And then not lose it is basically what I was trying to say. I think Jerome's the Sinclair example was a very good one. I mean, there were quite a few high hopes for him. He was a pretty damn good finisher. But obviously not perhaps as talented as Ben, but I mean, look at where he's ended up in a train station in Sheffield. So, there's
boys,
so many good points being made.
Boys, it was only, I just got to interject. It was only a matter of time before I do that. This is my fourth one, and then I have the shirt on, and it says,
here.
It's hard. So yeah, I just wanted you guys can bust on me later on for that.
It's funny because I read that shirt, and to me it says Adidas football.
Yes, that's what it says.
Asif, you touched on Jerome Sinclair, and Matt brought him up, but an even bigger example of this, and I don't mean to keep harping on about agents, but they're probably my biggest fucking bugbear in the game.
I'm right there with you, Craig. I'm right there with you.
Just look at how badly advised Raheem Sterling was. Now, he could have possibly been on his way to Arsenal during the transfer window, if probably Man City got what they wanted, really, if the truth be told. He would have been twice the player he is now if he had stayed at Liverpool, in my opinion. Now, he wouldn't have made anywhere near as much money.
No.
Yet.
100%.
But he would have been twice the player, Asif. That's what I honestly believe.
Yeah, especially in the Klopp.
Yes, I was just going to say it, SF, right on, if it was under Klopp. 100%.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I mean, if you just imagine his game, I mean, you can't actually probably teach him the end product as such, but I think he would be a lot more, have a lot more impact in games. I think most definitely. I think his style, I think his agent actually said that when Klopp took over. Maybe that was just a dig at Rodgers or whatever, but he did actually, I think he did say something like that. So yeah, I mean, like I say, agents, yeah.
Because, to the point of agents, what do we really know what happened with Philip Coutinho? I mean, it's just, if he was getting advised wrong, if the stuff that comes out, and then because the biggest conversation right now on our Twitter is that should he be, I'm not trying to get off topic, but is if he should, start on Saturday, should he be on the bench? Should he not even be in the, match day squad? So we're getting various, and the biggest thing I've seen is what is the truth? What really happened? And the agents are right behind that all.
I think it's a very interesting debate, which I tried to have on Twitter this week. And I think there were some mixed replies. Some people were saying, well, you control the agent, you employ the agent, so it's your decision, you're responsible.
That's true.
Which to an extent is true. But then, as we all know, people are different. Different personalities are different. Some people are more assertive than others. Some people aren't. Some people are more, like Phil did that very good interview, didn't he, in January or something, where he was happy in Liverpool and everything else. I think he thought that he would, from what I read anyway, I think the agreement was that there wouldn't be a release clause, but he would actually stay until the end of this season, at least, where then they would then listen to offers, to replace Iniesta or whatever. But obviously, I think someone's got into the ear of Kia Jarabchin or whoever he is, the same guy that did the Tevez Mascherano and all the other stuff. And I actually don't think he's an agent. I think he's an advisor or something, because he's FIFA downgraded him or something. I know he's banned from Manchester City anyway. So you can't help but feel that the agent did have a big part. And whether Phil then, like I said, like I think someone mentioned earlier, the agent goes to the family then puts pressure on Phil. Does Phil come across as the most assertive guy in the world?
No.
So it's too easy to say he controls the agent when there's so much pressure on somebody. And then, me personally, we need him. It's that simple.
You raised a very good point there, and it's down to the individual, because, I'm a very assertive person, so I know, for instance, that if I had an agent, there's no way he'd be telling me what I'm doing. I'd be of the view that I employ him, I'm telling him what I'm doing, and it's his job to then go get me the best deal he can get me. But I completely understand your point, and it's a very fair point. It depends on the person's personality, but I think we can all agree that one thing that needs to be there is an immense sense of trust that your agent is doing the best thing for you. And sometimes maybe as if that trust is that you buy into your agent saying, look, short-term pain, long-term gain, this will be better for you going forward, trust me. And it's just getting that balance between, is he really working for himself or is he working for me?
Well, I think that's where in this case you've got an agent with history. He's banned from Manchester City. Facts. He technically can't be called an agent. He has to be called an advisor or something, or he's going to some loophole. So I think that's a key part of this. We're not talking about a person that people don't know of. We're talking about
this guy has history.
His history. He's a dodgy agent. It's quite. It really is that simple. Or a dodgy advisor, sorry, because he's not technically an agent. So I think that's a key part to consider in all this. This guy is a guy. He gives AD a run for his money, if not more. So
one last point on agents, Jonathan, and I'm going to come to you with this one, is it seems to be that football is the only industry that the clubs go and pay these agents this vast sums of money. Typically we think of an agent and you think of the agent getting whatever it is, 10% of the player's salary or whatever the hell it might be. But I seen an interview with Simon Jordan, and he was talking about football being the only industry that's stupid enough to pay these crazy sums of money to agents to get deals over the line. It should be the player that's paying these agents. It's ridiculous that clubs are spending, 40, 50 million quid a year sometimes on agents' fees. That's scandalous.
Yeah, it's hard to get your head around it, really. I try and ask myself, what's the explanation for? And I honestly can't think. It's almost because, we've always had agents, so we'll still have them. Of course, like all parts of football, with all the excessive TV money, the agents is now become a very lucrative and kind of very good place to be. And you have a lot of people there that they don't have the right, they're only looking after themselves, a bit of Mayfairers, really, as we would say. Compared to other sports, it's hard to find another sport that has a same amount of money going around. There's still the only one that comes to my head is American football, and there's still, I believe.
Well, the thing is with any, it happens in all four major American sports, but what it is that the agents are employed by the player, and it's paid by the player, not by the club. And when you get into that, because I've learned more and more over the last couple of years about it. When you get into that means that the agent isn't always out for the player's best interest. They're out for their own interest and their own wallet. And that's just, I think that gets into a really tricky, going down the wrong road, because they're not worried about the player, which the club needs them to be worried about the player to have a good relationship. Because the player doesn't know, a lot of, what's going on with, the business side of things when they're young. And we were talking about Ben Woodburn. He needs to have a good agent to make sure he's not getting walked over, from sponsors to endorsements. There's just so many things, that could go on. So, yes, in America, there's like a very, very big amounts of money, but this is nothing like the transfer windows and the agents when it comes to, global football.
Well, I think the main problem is you've got your clubs like Man United and Barcelona who are pretty much run by dickheads. And they've set this precedent, like the Pogba transfer. Didn't his agent bag £25 million, something stupid? And it's just like it's because precedent's been set, and then because a precedent gets set, it then becomes expected of other clubs as well. And it's like, well, if you're not going to do it, another team will anyway. And I think the main problem is there's just some clubs that are so desperate for this success because they've fallen off their perch, like Manchester United specifically as a top example. They're just so desperate to get to the top. They're just throwing money at anything just to get what they want. And that's the way football is turning.
It's also getting to the point, Matt, where some clubs will only deal with some agents. So, for instance, we mentioned Mina Raiola there, and there was a couple of other agents that Mourinho's pretty close with, and it's almost as if his relationship with Mourinho is more important. George Mendes, yeah. Their relationship with the manager or the club is almost more important than the relationship with the player.
Well, yeah, I knew that's what you were going to say. That's exactly.
Wolves in the Championship, they've got this relationship with, I think it's Jorge Mendes. And look at all these really good players they've brought in all of a sudden want to come to the Championship. It's not because they want to go to Wolves. Who wants to go and live in Wolverhampton when they've been living in Portugal, living in, these lovely parts of the world? They're going there because their agents have basically said, you're doing it. I mean, Ruben Neves captained Porto a year or two ago, their youngest ever captain.
He was linked with us.
He's now at Wolves. Exactly.
Diego Jota. Yeah,
and then he went to Wolves. Like you said, who wants to go live and play there? But that's what it is.
One that comes into my head, it's an old transfer, but again, it was very much driven by agents and money, is the Robinho one when he went to City on deadline day. Oh, Jesus. 5 years ago now at this rate, remember about that under Mark Hughes. And he thought he was going to Chelsea. He had no idea where he was going. He's unveiling. He's just this crazy lost kid. He's no idea how he's ended up here or what's going on. He just knows that he's going to get loads of money. That kind of summed it all up for me.
Lads, I think we could go on bitching about agents for days and hours and hours and hours, and we could keep going. We could probably get 2 or 3 podcasts out of it, but I want to push on. And today was a bit of a momentous day for the Premier League because there was a vote held and clubs voted 14-5 with one club abstaining to end the summer transfer window before the season begins. A lot of managers have varying opinions on this, but I wanted to just put it to you guys and see what you thought of this and if it benefits the Premier League or if it gives them a disadvantage because clubs like Barcelona can now come in after our window's closed and buy our players, and it leaves us with, if they force their way out, with no way of getting in replacements. And Matt, you've been last one in on most of the topics tonight, so I'm going to come to you first on this. What's your take on it?
Well, I think it's a really good idea, and I think a lot of people are putting forward this argument, but what about the other transfer windows? It's simple. You just don't sell after the season starts. Any player with a release clause, you negotiate contracts to say your release clause is valid between this date and this date. That is all. And I think moving forward, it's definitely the best thing because the transfer things going on nowadays, like it's not like a simple deal nowadays. It's never that simple. So to have that dragging through the first few games of the season is just stupid and it's needless.
Asif, it seems to be something that if you say it out loud and you think about it, it sounds like common sense and something that should have been implemented a long time ago. But football isn't that simple. Leagues start in different weeks and things change.
Mate, you agree and you don't agree. I think I largely don't agree. I mean, good points being made there, but that's still not going to stop the clubs from unsettling the player in that last week or 2 weeks until, I don't know, for example, Barcelona, Coutinho. Just because the window would have closed here doesn't mean they're still not going to be trying like mad and speaking to the agents or whatever else for the 2 weeks after. Personally, I think the whole thing has to be uniform across Europe, like implemented by UEFA or something, or not. To be fair, I can't actually see the benefits of it. What are the benefits? I mean, how many Premier League teams sell to each other anyway?
I think the benefit of it is I think that managers want to have a settled squad when the season starts, and they don't want to have the situation of, say, for instance, okay, let's say, for instance, Liverpool played, we played Arsenal before the international break. Now, if Sanchez lined out and played for Arsenal against Liverpool, and then we go into the international break, he then gets sold to Manchester City. We then go play Manchester City the first game back from the international break, and oh and behold, who's that in the left wing? It's Sanchez again. It's that situation, I think.
There's a little, but
that's a very good point. That is a very good point.
The one that gets me is like one of the biggest. Look, speak for ourselves. Liverpool, one of the biggest transfer sagas was Coutinho. That's not going to change because of this ruling or this edit. If it's going to be done and implemented correctly, it has to be done among all the major European leagues as well. Otherwise, it's a bit of a farce. And you could argue that the Spanish teams or non-English teams have a more of an advantage now because they have a longer amount of time to poach those players, and they know that they can hold their clubs to ransom because they know, yeah, we can buy in here. You've only another week, or you've only another couple of days, but I have a week to do my business afterwards. It just for me, it has to be across. It's really all or nothing for my mind. It's a bit of a move, but it's probably a step in the right direction, but unless it's done across the board, it won't really make any sense in my mind.
Randall, Jonathan raised a couple of good points there, but one of them I wanted to touch on was what he said about it. It should have been done across the board if it was to be done across Europe in one fell swoop, but surely now there's no way that Italian clubs or Spanish clubs are going to give up this disadvantage that they now have in the transfer market. Why would they? They're looking for every edge in football and sport these days, and the Premier League are after handing them this extra couple of weeks to manoeuvre players and, as the lad said, maybe put pressure on the clubs that we didn't have before.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know why they would want to, now they're kind of in the driver's seat because they don't, they have an advantage. And what's going to happen now is that release clause is going to almost have to be in every contract, or once it's done, because, right, am I getting it right that now we can't buy any players, but we could sell them? And then if there's not a release clause in there, then the team in Spain or Portugal or Italy, anywhere, could come in and just say for Coutinho, if it didn't have a release clause in it, they would have bought him and he would have been gone, correct?
If we agreed to sell him, if the player unsettled enough that he was to go, then we'd have had
we still have to
13 million that we couldn't do anything with.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a
tough subject. That's the other thing. That's the other thing we can't. That was my main point when I did a little bit preparing for this, was that would be it. If we can sell them, but then we can't replace what we've sold. But I mean, it's the club that made the decision. Obviously, in this hypothetical situation, obviously the person would come back, devil's advocate, would be like, well, the club decided to sell them. But yeah, I mean, of course, yes. But if they sell player A, and they need to bring in player B and C to replace player A, and they have to wait till January to do that now. So it's tricky.
I think you've got a great point there. I mean, especially if that player has a release clause anyway.
Well,
so imagine if Coutinho had a release clause and they come in after the window's closed in England, we can't replace him. We're honor bound by a legal agreement to sell him, but then we can't replace him. So it just doesn't make sense.
What were you going to say, Craig?
Putting our pessimistic hat on as well, as if it also allows for, look, we know some people aren't fans of FSG, but it also gives them the perfect storm where they could say, well, look, what could we do? We had to sell him. He was unsettled in the dressing room, and it's not our fault we can't bring in a replacement.
Yeah, it's a great point.
Mate, you said that. I was actually thinking that, and I was thinking, well, I've had a good week on Twitter. It's actually been quite calm. But should I say it or shouldn't I? But no, you're right. It does. I mean, window closes, and like you just said, what can we do? Release clause.
Yeah, I mean, that's not everybody. I mean, that could be any ownership group could just be like, well, just throw up their hands like this. We tried.
Look, there's plenty worse than what we have, and I'm in no way a fan of how Manchester United is run as a business either, but it allows any owner, Asif, to be in that situation where they can say, well, look, he was unsettled in the dressing room. We didn't want to take a chance that we're stuck with him until January and it affects results on the pitch. We did what we believe was best for the club and the manager, and it's not our fault that we couldn't reinvest.
Yeah, and I just wanted to ask you guys what you thought, because I just brought up the article. It says a source confirmed that both Manchester clubs, Swansea, Crystal Palace, and Watford, voted not in favor. So why do you think those 5 clubs, I guess it is, or 6 clubs, decided? What is there any
they voted against
reason?
Their manager's wishes as well in a couple of those cases? Because I know for a fact Mourinho's been adamant that he wanted the window closed before.
Same with Paul Clement.
Yeah, it says United's vote is a counter to a previously stated position of Mourinho, who previously backed the idea. So. It's just interesting. I didn't know what you guys thought on why those 6 clubs, if there was consistency between them on the reasoning, or what you guys thought.
Well, it was 5 that voted no, and 1 club abstained from voting, I believe.
Yeah, Burnley abstained. Yep.
And
But no, it was,
14
it
was the
3.
magic number, wasn't it, that they needed to get through to get the vote approved.
Yes. Yeah.
So just about got there, lads. This also raises this transfers and money and owners and stuff raises another subject that came up this week that I find absolutely hilarious and petrifying in equal measures, and that's the head of La Liga coming out and talking about Paris Saint-Germain and Manchester City. And I like the analogy of, I think it was Manchester City, no, it was Paris Saint-Germain. He used an analogy of them pissing in the pool anyway, and that Neymar is now pissing from the high dive board into the pool and laughing. They're laughing at if one of the sheikhs wants to buy a player, they just open up the oil money and buy him. And it's now not businesses that are running football clubs, it's almost countries that are running football clubs. And this is a really, really dodgy area that we have to be very careful about talking about and about allowing into football. And Jonathan, I'm going to come to you first on it. Did you read these comments this week?
I didn't, but I'm not surprised by anything they've said.
I think he used another one as well, the financial doping as well, didn't he? That came from La Liga as well.
Yeah, it's sour grapes all around, isn't it?
I mean, it's fucking bad form from Spain as well, because they've been a powerhouse for how many years now in regards to having the top players.
Oh, mate, Barcelona just need to shut the hell up. It's like the boy who cried wolf.
The Barcelona thing, I did read someplace, I can't remember the player that it was. Might have been Fabregas, but that's immaterial anyways. But pretty much he's saying, like, the story is when you sign for Barca, you sign 3 different contracts. You sign your own one for Barca to show for the records, and then another one for tax purposes. And this, I must dig out the article again and get it right. I'm only skimming on top of my head here, but it's just saying the measures they have gone. Like, they all put out this story, oh yeah, we're a fan-based club, you know, we do this, we do that. They're just bullies, really, and just tax bullies at that. And to hear them, a part of me is delighted that they've missed out on, well, obviously delighted missed out on Coutinho, but the fact that Neymar has just packed up the bags and told them to do one, it's just priceless in my mind now, just to see the reaction of them as well.
I think it's a very interesting point you brought up, though. You know, that clubs could be basically owned by countries. You know, essentially, you know, whether it's Qatar, okay, the Prince of Qatar wants whoever, Prince of Saudi Arabia wants whoever, this sheikh over there wants whoever. We talked about identity earlier, and it's one of the things where, you know, our ownership comes into it again. FSG, everyone's, you know, got their opinion on them. Stay, go. Are they good? Are they bad? And it opens up the debate of, would we want to be funded by a sheikh or someone like that, or would we just like someone like FSG, who are stable and steady, but who don't deceive the fans and just put up their money in their pocket a little bit more? I think that's a whole different sort of a debate there as well, because you know, you do kind of lose identity. I don't know how pro I would be somebody just coming in and just, you know, spending £300-400 million on a player willy nilly. It's kind of an ethical sort of a debate as well. Would we want Liverpool to become that? It really is a tricky one. It's a very good point you made there.
Matt, where do you sit on this debate? It's a really interesting subject, but it's a subject that, as I said earlier, petrifies me as well, because there could be no end to where this is going with the money in football and what countries or wealthy individuals are willing to do.
Well, yeah, they made this financial fair play, but that just means fuck all, does it? Let's be honest. Like, the fact PSG have gone about their dealings, like, however they hide it, they've technically spent nearing 400 million this summer,
without wages.
And as far as I'm aware, they're not being investigated. I know for a fact City aren't being investigated, and I don't even know what their net spend is, but I know it's bloody huge, and it's just ridiculous. Like, there's no way Manchester City, with their half full ground every other week, are making enough money to fund all them transfers without dodgy dealings in the background.
Well, I know UEFA are looking over PSG's books, I believe. They're going to say they're going to go through them with a fine-tooth comb, but I wouldn't hold my fucking breath, to be honest, with what results are going to come out of it. But, lads, it's a subject we aren't properly equipped to speak about because we aren't knowledgeable enough on the subject. But as football fans, we're allowed an opinion on this. And as Asif said, it raises lots of different debates. It raises ethical debates. It raises debates from what type of club you want to be, what your identity of the club is. And I think from a Liverpool point of view, ideally, we'd love to see it run by supporters and the supporters trust, sort of like Barcelona to a degree, but those days are gone. There'll never be a way it could afford to be bought by supporters anymore. So Asif, if we were to sell the club, or if we do sell the club going forward, it's more than likely going to be to either I won't call them a vulture fund, but it's going to be to a range of wealthy individuals in a capital fund, or it's going to be to sovereign nation,
state.
or it's that's what's going to happen. So we kind of need to be careful what we ask for to a degree as well.
It's true. I mean, it really is very true. Like I said, would you want something like that? And I guess the argument is, can any team aspire to be where Liverpool wants to be, back at the top of the tree without that funding? Is it even possible? Or do we then say, well, our aspirations have changed, that we are not going to be at the very top table, but we're going to be in the next group below or the one below that? Or, like you say, stick with FSG, which will keep you in sixth. So, like I say, it really is a very interesting sort of a debate. And I know on Twitter, there's so many different opinions on it. Yes, I would love a sugar daddy. I would love, to buy the league, the Premier League. I mean, would it feel less sweet? I mean, if you went out and spent £300 million or £400 million in one window and we won the Premier League, I guess in one hand you would just think, forget it. But then there would be some that would say, well, this doesn't quite feel right. This is not how we envisaged the wait to end. I don't know. It is a very strange one. It's a hard one to answer.
It is. It's a really tough one to answer. And we're fickle, as we said before, as football fans.
Yeah.
And we could turn ourselves either way in these subjects. We could convince ourselves to believe one thing or another. But lads, one thing that's for certain is the transfer window is closed. Squads are as they are going to be until January. And just quickly before I look ahead to the City game and finish up, I just wanted to ask you guys to give me who you think is going to win the league with the squads that we have now, and give me one team that's nailed on for relegation. So, Matt, I'll come to you first. Who is your favourites for the league and a relegation team, please?
I think the game this weekend are the two favourites for the league, us and City. I think going forward, we are so many classes above everyone else. A lot of people would say United. I think they're yet to be tested properly. Personally, I think they could be up there, but I don't think they're going to quite have enough. They don't have a thick enough squad or anything like that. Whereas I think, if we can keep our team fit, we can definitely be up there. I think nailed on for relegation. I think it's been waiting for years, Crystal Palace. They've got a few good players, but I think overall squad, the club, the way it's run, it just stinks of relegation. And I don't think Brighton are going to stay up personally either.
They've got Mamadou Sakho, the saviour is there, the best centre-back the world has ever seen.
Yeah, I think they got out of jail last season, but I think just like Sunderland with years to come, like they have Jermaine Defoe, all these teams, they do have the odd players here and there, but it's about the full team, isn't it, really? And I don't think Crystal Palace have that at all.
I wouldn't be sad to see them go down, I'll be honest. I don't like them as a club, one little
definitely
bit.
not.
Randall, for you, league favourites and relegation fodder?
I don't want to just piggyback right off the same thing, but I really think what we've done, if Coutinho gets fitted right back in the squad, and I think it's this weekend, I would probably say Manchester City. I think we're maybe 1 year away. Everybody gels together. And then I think relegated is going to be West Ham. They've given up 10 goals against. It's 2 more than anybody. And then I would probably go with Crystal Palace as well. I just think they're not going to be able to put together, if they haven't won a game and they've given up 8 goals against. So it's just dodgy defense, even with the great Mamadou Sakho coming in.
Jonathan, so far we've seen great things happening in the northeast and London's fucked. So,
again, this won't mean a lot to non-Irish listeners, but my team in Ireland, Galway, broke a 29-year hoodoo there at the weekend to win the Hurling All-Ireland. I always said once Galway broke that hoodoo, Liverpool would win the league. So Liverpool are winning the league. As I said the other night, get your bookies, get your online account. We're going to do it. Joking aside, I really have positive thoughts for this season. If we continue our form, if we get everything together and avoid that January blip where we got ruined with injuries and players missing, particularly Manny, whatever, I think our squad is a lot more equipped to deal with the challenges. I think we've added more pace to break down low bank teams. I think we'll run them. We'll run City really close, and who knows? We could get in a run. Who knows what would happen? Going down, yeah, it's hard to disagree with the guys with Palace. If De Boer stays there, they're gone. They used to be kind of hard working, in your face, really annoying team, but now they've lost all that. And yeah, it'd be kind of been nice. Particularly, not much. I don't think De Boer said much himself, but that egghead fool of a coach, a fitness coach in Holland, who was comparing the contrast in De Boer to Klopp. I think it'd be great for if Karma could come full circle and bite him the ass, and they could go down. That'd really make me smile. Another team that it's a bit of off field, I think they might struggle, is Stoke. They don't be surprised if they go on a blip. They're one of these teams that have been around here for so long that they've tried to make that push on. You see them getting players like Bojan and Shaqiri and stuff like that to go to the next level. And a lot of the time, when teams go do that, they kind of go away from their basic principles, and they kind of try and think they're more ambitious and try and make that step into Europe. And often the time, sometimes it falls apart. So that's an outside bet, because a team that really, just to hone in my point, I'll shut up talking then, but to describe that sort of scenarios, remember when Charlton were in the league under Alan Kirbishery? Yeah. And they came up and they were a bog standard team for.
But they had Matty Holland.
They did, the great superstar.
Clive Mendonca.
Yeah. But a team that came up, that settled themselves into kind of mid-table to bottom of the table, above that relegation zone comfort, really. Fans get bored, they want fancy football, and before you know it, they're down, and then that's them gone, and they've rarely been back since. So yeah, that's an outside bet, but yeah, this is our year, folks. You've heard it here first.
Obviously, we want them to take the 3 points this weekend first against United before they go on their slump.
Well, Asif, bring us back down to earth. It's been all of us said we're winning the league.
Another reason, though, to be fair, Palace can get fucked is because they introduced cheerleaders to the Premier League, so they can get fucked for that for a start.
Alright, well, let's start off with the relegation first. The team that's disjointed, out of form, managers all over the place, shocking at the back, Arsenal. No, let's be serious now. What about that team that's bought about 100 odd players? Everton? No.
Richest club in the world.
Yeah, well, they might have too many players to gel.
They have this guy Wayne Rooney. You ever heard of him?
Yeah, he's fond of an old tip.
Saw him out in town the other night.
There's some old bird down the road talking about him, actually. But anyway, on a serious note now. I think everyone said Palace. I think, good riddance as well. The West Ham, interesting one. It's goals. They've got goals in them. I mean, Arnautovic and Hernandez. So Bilic probably won't be there much longer, but then you would imagine that between the two of them, they might get enough goals to stay up. I think Bournemouth are in a similar sort of a boat where they've probably got just about enough goals in them to stay up. Huddersfield, they've started okay, but again, you don't know whether they're going to peter out as the season goes on. Brighton, likewise, where are their goals going to come from? Watford, I think I'll throw that one in there. They're very reliant on Troy Deeney. You don't know if they're going to go on a massive slump. And the very last one, Newcastle. But then I'm hoping that Rafa will just about have enough at his disposal to keep them up.
Well, isn't there talk of Rafa possibly taking over from Bilic at West Ham?
Yeah.
He'd be incredible at West Ham.
It'd be a lot better than having Mike Ashley as your boss, and I'm sure Rafa just needs backing. You give him backing, and he literally can turn sand into water. Yes, I think that's going down. I think in terms of winning the league, this is why I personally got so angry with this whole Van Dijk thing, and I think a lot of other fans also got very angry with this Van Dijk thing. Is the opportunity that was there? If we had signed him now, right now, not in January, not next season, if whichever idiot at the club, for whatever reason, whether it was 60 million, or whether or not it was, I'll be clever here. Let's avoid a bidding war, and let's be funny and really irritate Southampton. Whoever did that, personally, I think has cost us a very good chance of winning the Premier League. That was why I was so angry and why I copped so much shit on Twitter.
So I think the fact that you're a prick.
Oh yeah, that's standard. But
we got to be honest here. Look who's talking.
Craig.
I'm king cunt, so I had to run away from Twitter with my tail between my legs.
Let's not talk about FSG. But no. But anyway,
that's a throwback. You're Donkey Kong and he's Bowser. Back to the Mario Kart reference from earlier.
That's it, mate. That's it. But yeah, and it'd be Liverpool winning the whole thing if they had signed Blig Van Dijk. But no, I think it'll be between City and Liverpool, if I'm being honest as well. I think City will probably edge it. Pains me to say that. I think for that reason that we probably let in one goal too many, and have we got that 1-0 in us. But having said that, I'm not totally convinced by City because they have signed so many players. It'd be interesting to see how the season pans out. I think United probably finish just under that. Chelsea you can't write off, but again, I don't think Conte is very happy. I think for me, Spurs would have been the favourites for the league if they weren't playing at Wembley.
Yeah, that's screwed them, hasn't it? That really has screwed them.
I think if you talk about timing Van Dijk, I think their timing to play at Wembley couldn't be worse. Because this year at White Hart Lane, the way that they were developing, they would have taken some stopping this year.
And you know what?
Who's your biggest surprise in the top 7? Asif, who's your biggest surprise in the top 7?
What, that will finish in the top 7?
Yes.
It's always a surprise whenever Everton finish up there, to be honest. I really don't know, mate. It's who will be the surprise team in the league?
I have one.
Yeah, go for it.
Swansea.
Yeah, with Sanchez.
Love Paul Clement as a manager, to be fair.
Yeah, they have an exceptional manager. They really do. I think that guy's he's been around a lot of the big clubs as a number 2. I think he's going to go all the way in the game. But if they click, they can get some air miles up.
That's what I was thinking. Somebody like that, just to see what you guys thought.
Or what we said earlier, if Rafa went to West Ham.
Yeah, he could turn it around.
I personally think Watford are decent as well. I think they've got a top quality manager and a decent enough team. I just think it depends whether they hit a good run or a bad run. I think it's one of them. They could do really well or they could do really badly as well.
That's exactly what you said. I mean, all these teams, if they hit a good run, they could finish 6-7. If they don't, they could be down on the brink of, going down. So
I think the conclusion we can certainly say we've come to here, lads, is that it's a damn competitive league.
Wide open.
And it's going to be very interesting. But look, we'll quickly look ahead to the Man City game on Saturday before we wrap up. And I don't know what to expect, if I'm being honest here, lads. We'll start with our starting lineup, I suppose. So, Matt, are you expecting the players who are on the long haul trips to be back in the starting 11? I'm talking about the Firminos here, the Manes, Salahs, possibly Coutinho.
I'm expecting a pretty bog standard team. I'm not expecting Coutinho to start. I've gone with Mignolet, Alex Arnold, Lovren, Matip, Robertson, Henderson, Chan, Wijnaldum, Salah, Mane, and Firmino. Which I think is exactly the same as Arsenal, bar the 2 fullbacks. So I can't really see many surprises there. I think with both of us being attacking teams, we've just got to go for it. And I think bringing Coutinho off the bench around the 60-minute mark as well is going to work wonders for us.
Storage.
What are you expecting score-wise? Give me a quick prediction.
I think there's going to be goals. I think it could be a 3-2, a 3-3, 4-3, something like that. I think it's going to be a very exciting game. Like the last one at the Etihad, which, funny enough, was it 0-0 or 1-1? But there could have literally been 5 or 6 goals each.
Yeah,
that game.
I'm not going to lie, I have the exact same starting 11 in my head, Matt.
Yeah, so snap.
It would be, and apart from it being strange to think of it, the players that played and have played so far deserve to keep their places as well.
100%.
And one player who you're worried about for Manchester City as well, real quick, Matt, while I have you.
I've picked out 4 in particular. I can't really narrow it down to one. There's Kevin De Bruyne, David Silva, Sergio Aguero, and Gabriel Jesus. I think those 4 together are the only 4 that can compete with our best front 4. Every one of them players is brilliant. De Bruyne and Silva could thread the ball through the eye of a needle, and with our zonal mark, and Aguero and Jesus are going to be ready to pounce, and we've got to be on the ball defensively at the weekend if we're going to get anything.
I have a sneaking suspicion
really got to go for it.
Aguero won't start. Just
I hope he does.
A suspicion.
Who do you think starts in replace of Raheem Sterling? Do you think they move Aguero up top and have Jesus outside?
Or Sane?
See, I wouldn't have Raheem Sterling in my strongest Man City team personally. I think there's a lot better players around him. You've got
I agree.
Bernardo Silva and Kevin De Bruyne are out wide. And then you've got either one or both of Jesus and Aguero with Silva in the number 10, depending on how they set up. We know what Pep Guardiola's like. He'll try different things here and there. But yeah, personally, I don't think Raheem Sterling is good enough to be in that starting 11 for Man City.
That just proves the point what we talked about earlier. He should have stayed at Liverpool. Randall, give us your starting 11 for the game and some players you're worried about for City and a prediction as well, please.
Yeah, so mine would be I'm going to try to get Andrew Robertson outside left, Matip and Lovren in the middle, outside right. I would be Trent, the hyphen, Trent Alexander-Arnold, Sean Wijnaldum, and Hendo in the middle, and then our firepower of Mane, Salah, and Firmino, up top, and just blaze them down the left and right hand side. I think that's where we can get them with our speed and our pace. We can really go at their defense. They were vulnerable a couple times against Bournemouth. I watched the highlights a couple times earlier just to see where we could get them, and that's just one place I think we can get them. Down the left and right hand sides, like we've seen at the beginning of the season.
The fastest player in the Premier League in regards to speed, by the way. He's reached, I think, 23 kilometers or miles per hour. He's got the fastest speed recorded. So he's no slouch.
So that's true, and that'll be definitely be a good matchup. My most interesting thing you guys said it, was that their best lineup. City's best lineup is probably without Raheem Sterling, so that'll be very interesting to see who is in there in place of him this week per se. But I think it's Gabriel Jesus. He came on quick last year, had that ankle injury, but I think he's back in full form. We got to keep him. We got to keep him at bay, and obviously we know we have some breakdowns defensively. So hopefully we can get out of this international break and get 3 points and motor on with Champions League coming up here not too long away.
Give me a prediction.
I think 4-2 Liverpool, brace from Mane, goal from Salah, and off the bench, Sturridge.
Wow, love it. You know what? You won me back over. You might have made a boo-boo earlier on by calling football soccer, but you won me back with the outside left and outside right comments there. That's old school stuff, and I haven't heard that spoken about in a long time. Jonathan?
Yeah, I'm American. You got to give me a little excuses on those. Somebody
outside
long
left
ago.
Is perfect for me. That's what my father would have called a left back.
Yeah.
I think that the team has been discussed there. It's Minglet back in, Trent, Mapic, Lovren, Robertson, Chan, Hendo, Genie. Salah, Bobby, Mane. That picks
Bobby.
Bobby Firmino. Barring the fullbacks, I think the rest of it picks itself. Again, like you guys have said, I'm going to sound like a broken record. I see lots of goals, but I see us edging out. I think we have a little bit more fluidity in our game. I think we have more potency up front and more of a goal threat, really. That being good. City are excellent, but I just think we've that just little bit more. And if City haven't played anybody like us yet this season, I think if we get in their face and be really, really aggressive, attack is definitely the best form of defence here. Goals, I'm gonna continue on and go for another 4-2 Liverpool win.
Wow. And danger man for City that you're worried about?
Just Jesus. Guy's going to be a superstar. Let's hope it's not Saturday morning.
Yeah, he's one hell of a player, and a player I really, really, really wanted to play for Liverpool, if I'm being honest.
I just have nightmares of him going up against Lovren.
Asif, last prediction for you?
Okay, mate, I think the team pretty much picks itself. It'd be interesting to see if he does stick with Moreno at left back. I really hope he doesn't, but it'd be interesting to see if he does, especially considering the pace that City have down the sides. It's just interesting, as the guys were talking there, no one's even mentioned Bernardo Silva, whether he's going to play or where he's going to play, but it just shows you what abundance of riches that Manchester City have. Coutinho, like I say, I think it's too soon for him, but at the same time, he does have a great record against City, home and away. I think he's got quite a few goals against them, and he's also played very well there, I think. The danger men for City, I would say, are Dejan Lovren and Edison, the goalkeeper, in regards to how well he plays on the day. I enjoy these games. I think they're a lot. You don't look forward to the likes of West Brom and Palace and those sort of games. Here you've got another team that attacks us, brings out the best in us, and I'm hoping that we edge it. I'm going for a 2-1 win.
Lads, I'm absolutely loving the optimism, I have to say.
Well, it's either that or a 1-0 with us missing, 1-0 defeat with us missing lots of chances. But let's stick with the 2-1. I'm
going to be the pessimist of the group, and I'm going to predict a 1-1, a low score and 1-1. I'm worried about I've no idea who's going to score.
Who scores? Okay.
Haven't got a clue. For them, I'm going for De Bruyne, but other than that, I haven't got a clue who scores. I don't care who scores. I'll take a 1-1 now.
Sorry, mate, there's some talk the company might be injured today. Just throw that in right at the end.
Oh, really?
Water is also announced as being wet.
But then they'll play John Stones.
Oh, yeah. Bring him on.
I would love to see Jones in there. That front three pressing him when he tries to play some football. He would get roasted.
Love to see Mane and Salah running at John Stones. Oh, my God.
Part of that whole 50 million quid back four that they have. Lads, we're going to leave it there. We could talk and talk and talk, and I thought it was going to be something that we are going to struggle with this week with it being an international break, but there's plenty we've discussed, and huge thanks to Asif, to Jonathan, to Matt, and to Randall for joining me. The guys will be back on Saturday straight after the game with an off the cuff, and we'll talk to you guys soon. Thanks for listening. Good luck and bye-bye.